Welcome in, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 26th. Indiana falls for the first time this season on Saturday in Columbus to the number two ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, 38-15. Matt Weaver, Jared Kelly here joining you guys for Peegs.com. Ahead of Saturday's Bucket game, the regular season finale, and then whatever lies ahead for Indiana. Tonight is also the fourth college football playoff reveal, and obviously Indiana is going to take a little bit of a tumble after the Ohio State loss. We will talk through all of that and see sort of where Indiana shakes out in this crazy CFP race right now. But Matt, first, I feel like we should start with the hot news that came out yesterday with Curt Cignetti's contract extension details. Peegs.com was able to obtain the a memorandum of understanding between Indiana and Curt Cignetti. So we have most of the details here on what it all entails. Obviously, Matt, the big one is the $11 million on-field coaching and support staff salary pool. Now, there was some misunderstanding here, sort of how that money would be allocated, what it all meant. So, just for clarification, the $11 million is for all staff, including strength staff, support staff behind the scenes, recruiting guys, analysts, stuff like that. So it's not all on-field assistants, but Matt, $11 million, still a very, very significant number from what it previously had been. Just how important is that number to be that high, and Indiana showing, continuing to show its willingness to really, really invest in this program?
Well, I mean, I think it's really important because, well, we've talked about it. I mean, Kurt Cincinnati, I'm sure, is very interested in getting paid what he's getting paid. You got to have the people around you, and he says that all the time. You got to get the right people in the building, and obviously, a big part of that is going to be the financial component. And with this, I think we what was it, like 8 point something before, 8 point something million for all those for that, and now it's up to like 11. So it's a pretty good, like 23%, I believe, increase or something like that around there. And so you need that. I mean, listen, it's when you win, people are going to try to come and take your guys. They're going to try to poach your assistants. And even though you have this money, guys are going to want to leave because they're looking for upward movement. They want to be a head coach if they're a coordinator. They want to be a coordinator if they're a position coach. So, but this allows you to go out and replace a good coach with another good coach. And so, and it shows a commitment. It shows Curt Cignetti that the university and the administration is all in. And obviously, paying him what they're paying him, that shows that. But then you back it up with this. So it's just a big part of it. I mean, any head coach will tell you got to have good people around you. You can't do it all by himself. And this gives him the ability to go out and hire somebody good if he has to at some point in time.
So the rest of this contract, the first year he's going to make around 8.3 million when you factor in the annual retention bonus of $1 million. So, and then it goes up by 200,000 every year. And obviously, if Cincinnati keeps winning, and with the way college football is going, with the revenue involved, you could see a restructuring in this contract in later years if he does end up keep winning. But 8.3 million is that figure for the first year, and then tack on 200K every subsequent year. Matt, I know there were some questions about the buyout here. Not only between us, but also on our board, and just looking around, seeing what everyone had to say about this contract. The buyout seems pretty low than what we kind of expected. Next year it's 13 million, then 10 million, then 9 million, and it keeps trickling down. Did that strike you as kind of low? Because you had said that obviously 13 million is not going to deter any high level school from coming after Cignetti if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit low, but it is what it is. I was a little bit surprised. I figured, for a contract that's 64 million, and then obviously when you factor in the bonuses, it goes up to 72. Assuming he gets all those retention bonuses for the next 8 years, you would think the buyout would be quite a bit more. I mean, 3 to 4 times more is kind of what I assumed, but um, you know, I, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm not sure what else to say about it. It's just that, I would think though, if Indiana keeps having success, which I expect them to do, and the university keeps showing a commitment to the program and to Signetti, both from a financial part and also just, in facilities and all the stuff that he needs behind the scenes. I think he's here to stay. I mean, he said it himself. He's built this. Why would he walk away with it after he's built it and let somebody else come in? I mean, this is kind of his baby, so to speak. I think he'd like to see it all the way through. But obviously, it's gonna depend on Indiana's end. And like so far, Indiana's done everything great. Scott Dolson and President Witten have been fantastic. Um, and getting this program going, and I don't see that changing. I don't see it changing. I mean, the media money's only going to get bigger, so it's not like you should be okay there. You continue to sell tickets like you've been selling tickets, that's going to grow. So I think the commitment will be there. It's just as long as he's happy and things are going well. I've said it before. I think he will retire at Indiana. That's my prediction. Maybe I'll end up eating crow on that, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree as well. And, we obviously don't know all the conversations that went on behind the scenes here, but there's a lot of different money that has to be allocated in different ways too, where, obviously facility is a big thing that Chris Gnetti is pushing for. Different things that where, there's a lot of money involved here, and it could just be a situation where Kurt Gnetti said, I'm not leaving, it's fine, don't worry about the buyout right now, put our money where it matters most that can help us right now, in terms of facilities and stuff like that. So you'd have to also imagine that is also sort of the conversation. Looking through the rest of this contract, a lot of the bonuses and incentives are mostly the same from what they were in his previous contract. Things like 150K for 6 Big Ten wins, 500K for a second Big Ten place, Big Ten finish, $1 million for Big Ten championship, 500K for a first round college football playoff appearance. So a lot of those things are relatively the same. Matt, he does have a what is this? Unlimited access to the Bow Golf facility. Are you a golfer?
I was in a former life before I had kids.
Yeah, I
they,
don't
uh,
know.
they killed my golf game, but that would be. I've actually played the foul course. The last time Peegs had a golf outing was a few years ago. We did it at the foul course, and it's an absolutely gorgeous facility. So, um, I like he's got the $25,000 per year courtesy car allowance, 10,000 for personal orders of Adidas stuff. So he's also got like I think he gets a bunch of tickets to both basketball and football. And just real quick on the bonuses, I mean, it's I get it. It's always interesting to me though when you're paying a guy 8, 9, 10, and maybe he's 8, 9, 10 million a year, and then they get bonuses for basically what you're paying them to do, which
Yeah,
I'm fine with. I'm not criticizing, but like getting the fifth or sixth Big Ten win or getting in the top six or but I mean, he could literally there could be a year where he could make well over $10 million. I mean, if they make a run, even if they finish runner up and I mean, there's that's it. But you know what? If he does he's earned it. He's absolutely earned that money. But yeah, some of these bonuses, when you read some of this fine print, the stuff they get, the golf course, like you said, and the gear, it's just kind of interesting.
yeah, yeah. So that is Chris Ignati's contract, you folks. If you want to read more through it, we have it over on Peegs.com, the full outline of the contract, and it's done. Obviously, it's set in ink now. So good to see that kind of behind Indiana now. Now can Indiana and Kurt Cignetti can full steam ahead to the offseason and what lies ahead here. Hopefully, it results in a college football playoff this year, and then we'll see obviously the subsequent years what the ripple effects are from this. But Kurt Cignetti is officially locked in. He'll make $8.3 million next year. It's an 8-year contract, which should take him through his age, I believe 70 season, 71 maybe. So for all intents and purposes, it is a lifetime contract, and just good news on all sides of that. All right, Matt. Let's go into this Ohio State game from this past weekend. We were both there in Columbus. I don't think it's crazy to say that this was by far Indiana's worst performance, while also acknowledging Ohio State just is littered with 5-star NFL talent across the field. Offensively, not good. Defensively, it's pretty solid. Special teams gave up 14 points. This is probably a game where Indiana's banging its head on some of the mistakes it made because it could have, even if it didn't win this game, you really felt like it could have been a lot more competitive than the final score indicated as well.
Yeah. Hey, real quick off the topic, I just got a notification. Former Indiana assistant Kevin Wright is back at Carmel as the head football coach. As I literally told somebody a week ago, I bet you he comes back to lead the program. But anyways, that has nothing to do with this. Yeah, I mean, I said going to the game, I thought this could be competitive. We thought it both could be competitive, but I also said if they don't block better than they did against Michigan offensively, it was going to be a rough day. And on the first offensive possession for Indiana, they did do a good job. And you saw Curtis Rourke being Curtis Rourke, picking defense apart, hitting guys in stride, a lot of really good plays. But then after that, they Ohio State. If I don't know if they did some, something different, and people say, why didn't Indiana adjust? Well, there's only so much you can adjust to. I mean, if you're, if your offensive line is just physically not able to handle the guys across from them, then it's just kind of tough. Now, Kirk Cinetti, I thought was interesting. He said he thought they only had one time where they were physically beaten. I mean, he watches the tape. He knows more than me. I thought it was more than that. He thought it was more about execution and guys just not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And who knows? Maybe some of it was, I think the noise was obviously a big factor. He mentioned that. I think Ohio State really caught on to the hand signal, the Bray Lynch tapping Mike Kadick's leg or whatever to tell him to snap the ball. But the bottom line is they struggled. He said it yesterday. He said, we've got to get our pass protection shored up. It's got to get fixed. So, you would think this week is a week to get, to kind of get right with that. But if you do make the playoffs, you're going to be facing probably a similar type, athlete on the defensive line that you faced the past two games in Michigan and Ohio State. So it's something that you're going to have to get fixed, going forward. Like I said, even if you play in a really good bowl game, you play an SEC team in the Citrus Bowl, let's just say they don't make the playoff and they're in the Citrus Bowl, you're going to be facing that kind of athlete. So, yeah, it was a tough game. I felt bad, I felt bad for Curtis Rourke because, and Signe said this, when you get hit that much, you're going to start getting skittish. And he was skittish. I mean, you could tell it got to him. The running game, I thought actually when you consider how poorly the offensive line did in pass block, the running game was actually pretty solid. Tyson Lawton had a great game when you look at it. And Justice Ellison was solid as well. In the defense, until that last drive, I thought the defense really did a pretty good job. They were put in some really awful situations, and I thought they held up pretty good against a team that's just absolutely loaded on offense. So, yeah, it was disappointing. Really shocked by the special teams mistakes. I mean, and the one on Evans, I hate to say, it's on James Evans. The snap was okay; he just dropped it, and then the punt return, there might have been a couple iffy, block in the back. But the bottom line is, and Signetti said yesterday that ball was supposed to be kicked to the right. And if you remember, it was down the left, the left part of the field. So all their coverage was going one way and they had to kind of backtrack. So, I mean, you hate to have, but James Evans has been a terrific punter for Indiana, but it was not his best outing on Saturday.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of killers in this game, just, in all different facets. The crowd noise, I know a lot of people want to talk about that, and I guess let's talk about it. I remember, when I got home from Columbus, I was watching like all the night games, and there was quite a few teams that was actually doing the same thing as Bray Lynch with with the hand signal and sort of, tapping the center when to snap the ball, especially in those road environments. I know Alabama was doing it against Oklahoma. So it's not something that's new for Indiana, and I know people are asking, why didn't they change it? How was, the rest of the offensive line able to hear Curtis Rourke but not Mike Kadick? There's a lot that goes into it, and if that's what they need to do to be able to get the ball off, because first of all, I mean, you got to be able to snap the ball. So if that's what they have to do, then that's what they have to do. But you could see it. You could see Ohio State was really teeing off on them. And I think, that first drive where Indiana drove down the field, I think it was like a 10-play, 70-yard drive. It looked super sustainable for the long term, just how Indiana was able to, get 3-4 yards on the ground, 5-7 yards through the air, stuff like that. And then it really felt like after that touchdown possession, Ohio State's defense really just they were just sending the house on everything because they knew Indiana couldn't pick up those stunts. I was really surprised, Matt, how poor Indiana's backfield blocking was, because that's been a strength all season with Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton and being able to pick up blitzes. It just felt like whatever Ohio State was doing to disguise their blitzes, Indiana just could not either read them, see them. But that has been a strength for Indiana, the running back blocking, and that was not in this game too, which is, I wouldn't say it's concerning, but you at this late in the season, you want that to be a lot better than it showed.
Yeah, and it seemed like at times they were confused exactly where the blitzer was coming from. I can remember plays where they had a running back in the backfield, and he was kind of standing. I can't remember if it was Ellison or Law, and they were standing there kind of waiting, and the blitzer was coming from the off the left tackle, and he was kind of more like looking on the right side, and so I don't know if that's they give Ohio State credit. Maybe they were disguising it really well. That's kind of you would hope that the quarterback would see that. But if it's two guys you're kind of guessing a little bit, and if you guess wrong, then obviously you're in trouble. So but yeah, in the Michigan game, I think we talked about it. After that, the running back blocking, at least by PFF grades, was really low. And I can't remember. I honestly can't remember what it was. Because I said the PFF story a couple of days ago, but I'm guessing it wasn't great. I think I saw some red numbers, which is not good. In pass blocking for the running back. So yeah, it's something, and it's not because they can't block. I just think these last couple of games they struggled with where to pick up the blitz, where it's coming from, and getting over to wherever side they need to get to. So like I said, this week is hopefully a week where you kind of get everything right. But once again, if you get in the playoff, you're going to be facing similar type of stuff. So your good news is you'll have multiple weeks to get ready for that playoff game, assuming that happens, and hopefully get some of this stuff ironed out.
Yeah. I know there was a little bit of consternation too over the play calling in this game. Just a lot of disappointment in how Indiana was calling plays offensively. It didn't look like they were able to really counter that blitz, even though you pretty much knew it was coming on every play. The game plan, Matt, I don't put too much of it on Mike Shanahan. Like when you have less than 2 seconds to stand in the pocket, like what are you supposed to do? And I know, past Indiana teams, you think about like that 19 season with Kalen DeBoer. Indiana's offensive line was not great then, and he was able to make it work with sort of those wide receiver screens and getting the ball horizontal, away from the pressure. But I feel like even stuff like that in this type of game where I mean you have to let those plays develop. I don't really know what Indiana was supposed to do in this game because first of all you're behind the eight ball already, so you have to push the ball downfield a little bit or try to. So you can't just run the ball the whole game. And there's just not enough time for screens to develop or for routes to develop. So I don't really know what Mike Shanahan was supposed to do in this game, and I feel like he caught a bit more flack than he should have for that.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I said this before, when I would have one-on-one talks to Kevin Wilson back in the day, and I know he just lost his job, but he's still a very good offensive coach. He would say, I can only run when I can block. And, you can talk about the screens. The one thing Ohio State was doing is they were pressing. I mean, their DBs are right up on any other receivers. I mean, it's a little bit tougher, I think, to run some of those kind of horizontal things when the guy, I mean, it's, you could stack your receivers and maybe try to have a guy or two block. But it's still not an easy task, to do that. It's hard to run anything when you have to literally get rid of the ball right after it's snapped to you. And I'm not making excuses for Mike Shannon. I'm sure there's a lot of play calls. There's play calls in games where I guarantee in the 56-7 win over Nebraska, there are play calls he wanted back. It happens every week. Once again, football is a game that's won and lost up front. It will never change. I don't care what the rules are. And Ohio State was better than Indiana up front. And it showed. I mean, that's just the bottom line is it showed. And talking about that real quick, I thought the defense played solid overall, but it was the second game in a row with no sacks. They did have some tackles for loss, but give Ohio State with a rebuilt kind of offensive line, they did a good job of protecting Will Howard. And I thought that's an area where they could struggle and Indiana could take advantage. And unfortunately, they weren't able to.
Yeah, let's talk defensively because that was one of the bright spots in this. Well, I wouldn't know. I don't know if you want to call it a bright spot, but they were at least solid for what they were given. Ohio State had terrific field position basically the whole game. There's a couple drives where they started inside of Indiana's 10-yard lines. So it was a very difficult task for Indiana to hold up there, but you mentioned the pass rush pressure. That was probably the most disappointing thing for me. And I know Ohio State, even their backup offensive linemen are probably better than most of the offensive linemen you're going to see in the Big Ten. But I thought that was pretty disappointing because, guys like Mikael Kamara gets completely shut out, tackles for loss and sacks. James Carpenter didn't have a tackles for loss, and he's feasted on those all game. I thought CJ West would have a lot bigger game than he did with Ohio State's backup center, getting the start there. And it was kind of a disappointing performance just in terms of Indiana couldn't win up front like we've seen them, do this season. And I felt pretty good about Indiana's chances to at least put pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz a whole ton. But this was a game where you really could see the talent disparity. And I don't know if it was the scheme that they put together or, just flat out not winning those one-on-ones. But that was pretty disappointing for me because Will Howard pretty much had all day to stand in the pocket when he wanted to, it felt like.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, they did a solid job against the run, but obviously, Howard was really good throwing the ball, and he had quite a bit of time. And with the skill, the players he has, those receivers, Abuka and Jermaine Smith, and then those guys, Judkins and Travion Henderson. I mean, those are probably four NFL dudes right there. And when you give a guy like Will Howard that much time, and like I said, he's similar to Rourke. You give a guy that good that much time, he's going to find people. And unfortunately, Indiana was not able to generate. I went with you. I thought they would be able to get a little bit more of a push up front. And again, those guys did a pretty good job against the run. Take out that last run for Ohio State. I thought they were solid against the run. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get to Howard enough, or really at all, to be perfectly honest, to kind of affect him and impact the game.
Yeah. The one area where Indiana did play pretty well is the run defense, and a lot of this probably had to do with just a short field position. So I know people, especially Kurt Cincinnati, he wants to say we held them under 300 yards. If you take away that last well, I mean, yeah, you did hold them under 300 yards, but they also were starting at the 10-yard line to punch in touchdowns. So it's a little bit of it's a little bit skewed there because I feel like Ohio State could have put up a lot more yards if they're given a full field to work with, but that's besides the point. But run defense, you hold Travion Henderson, obviously nine carries for 68 yards. He had that 139-yard carry at the very end. So you take that away, he's around 30 yards rushing. Quinshon Judkins only 14 carries for 36 yards. I liked how Indiana's run D played. That's a positive coming out of this. And Indiana's run D still ranks number one in the nation. So you have to feel good about that because even Michigan was a run heavy team and Indiana was pretty good about shutting them down. Ohio State another good running team. They were able to pretty much neutralize them. You could talk, Matt, about the final drive if you want. I really don't have opinions on that. But the run D in general I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. They did a solid job, and obviously you had that long run by Henderson there at the very end where he slid down. But other than that, they like you said, you pointed out the numbers. The Indiana run defense was pretty solid. Which I mean, again, it's just like on the offense. It's I guess a little surprising that you're able to run the ball when you couldn't really throw it at. What they throw, I think it was 68 yards. Indiana threw the ball for, which is just crazy. I mean, that's almost like your Army or Navy or something. But those teams run for like 350 because they run the triple option. But then on the flip side, obviously Ohio State was able to throw the ball, pretty much at will. But yeah, the run game, outside of that one run for the most part that was not super effective for them. So, it was kind of a crazy game in that sense. The last drive, I don't really have much thoughts. I know people are pissed off. Probably people the most pissed off for anybody who might have had money on the game one way or another, or in some that because they gave up that touchdown. But you know what? That's football. Yeah, I would think Cignetti would do the same thing. A lot of coaches would do the same thing. Listen, in today's day and age, it's not just about winning; it's about how you look when you win. And let's be honest, Cignetti said some things, and I have no problem with it. I have absolutely no problem with the stuff he said to get this program going. But when a team has a chance to kind of rub it back in, they're going to do it. Ohio State had that chance and they took advantage of it. I personally, it's just the way it's way it is. Listen, if you want to play big boy football, this is what you're going to deal with. You know what I mean? You're gonna have this kind of stuff. I mean, to me, it should be a compliment to Indiana that Ohio State feels like they need to score again against Indiana to kind of enhance their resume. In most years, that's absolutely not the case. In most years, they've already got that score already to where it is. So the fact that they feel like they have to do that shows, hey, Indiana's starting to get a seat at the big boy table. Now you got to show you belong.
And the thing too with the final drive is, I mean, if you don't want Ohio State to score, then don't allow that 39-yard run, right? I mean, the guy literally went right up the middle through a whole line of defense. So I mean, Chris Agnetti for as good as he's been this year. I mean, let's be honest, he was pretty cocky in the offseason. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna be able to dish it, you got to be able to take it as well. So
Yeah.
I really had no problem with what Ryan Day did there. I know a lot of people are pretty mad about that, but I mean, this is life if you want to be a Big Ten, a big time team in the Big Ten. So I really had no problem. Matt, any lingering thoughts on this Ohio State game? I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it yet. I'm planning on doing that today. I imagine the film is not pretty on that one, but is there any concern about the blocking at this point after 6 quarters of bad blocking? Any concern, just with how I don't know if you want to say inept, but very, very inconsistent the offense has been over the last 6 quarters.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say there's no concern. I think there is a little bit. Now, I do think the significant uptick in talent is responsible, and if that's not making an excuse, that's just the way it is. I mean, they have the best players that you can get in college football, and these guys they're super talented. Um, uh, Now, if we get into the first quarter of the Purdue game and there's still a struggle, and I mean, listen, sports are, especially in football, it's a copycat thing. They talk about the NFL as a copycat league. People are going to look at this now. Purdue does not have the same players that Ohio State does, but they got some guys. Will Helt, their defensive ends. I think he's got 8 or 9 tackles for loss or whatever. They got some guys who can cause a problem, and then they can blitz too. They're going to watch this tape and maybe they're going to take some things from it. I think Indiana will be okay, but if we get in the first quarter and they're struggling to block and they're struggling to get the offense going, then you're starting to get really concerned. So we'll see. I would say there's a slight level of concern. I still feel pretty good about their ability to get it fixed, but like I said, ask me again after the first quarter of the Purdue game on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about too. Is Indiana doesn't obviously, everyone's gonna go in here thinking Indiana's gonna win, which they should win pretty handily against Purdue. But I almost feel like this could be a sort of a letdown game in that not only does Indiana need to win this game for the college football playoff, but they need to win big. Like they can't fool around and squeak by 2 touchdowns, 10 points. Like they have to win big. And if, like you mentioned, if Indiana starts slowing that game and you let Purdue hang around, that is concerning on a multitude of levels for what it could mean for the CFP and just in general. And I'm not concerned that Kurt Cignetti is going to let this team sort of glide through that game, but that is a concern after 6 quarters of what we've seen. And you mentioned this. This is I mean Purdue has nothing to lose in this game, right? They're 10-1, or sorry, one they're 1-10. I mean, they got nothing. They got nothing to lose. This is essentially their Super Bowl. So they're going to come in there trying to really spoil Indiana's day. And IU has to win big. And that first quarter will tell us a lot about where IU is right now after what we've seen the last 6 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought Indiana came ready to play at Ohio State. I just think the better team won.
Yeah.
And I'll be surprised if they're not ready to play, especially after the last, especially on offense after the last 6 quarters, and then just the entire team after this past game, after losing the game. But this is Purdue's bowl game. They have literally. I would expect them. I think I said this when me and Robbie did our thing yesterday after the press conference. To throw the kitchen sink at Indiana. Every trick play they have, they're probably going to run. I wouldn't be shocked to see onside kicks, fake punts, whatever it may be, because what do they got to lose? Now there's been reports that Ryan Walters is going to be back. I mean, I'm not sure that'll change his game plan, but maybe if you thought this was your last chance to show something, maybe you go a little bit more crazy. Maybe it won't be as crazy, if he feels like he's going to be back. But still, this is their bowl game. They want to keep the bucket. They've not beaten one FBS team all season. And this is, and I've been following this rivalry for a really long time. I've seen bad Indiana teams give good Purdue teams a game. I've seen bad Purdue teams give good Indiana teams a game. You throw the records out in this game because it's a rivalry. Now, it's a little bit different nowadays with all the changes on these rosters, where before you might have a lot of guys who were there for 2, 3, 4 years, and the rivalry meant a little bit more to them. But I think Indiana will come ready to play. It's just, can they fix the mistakes that have kind of cropped up, or the issues, I should say, that have kind of cropped up here over the last couple of games? Can they get those fixed, especially on offense? The defense really has played pretty solid. They played good enough on Saturday, in my opinion, to win that game. But the offensive special teams completely let you down. They definitely played good enough against Michigan. In fact, they were the reason why they won. So, I think if the offense can get back on track, I think this will be a game that they win handily. But, there is a little bit of, kind of doubt just because, and a little bit of question because of, the way they've looked the last, game and a half.
Mm-hmm. I was pretty surprised when the betting lines came out on this one. Indiana opened as 28.5 point favorites. They're up to 29 and a half point now. And I get that Purdue has been atrocious this year. I get that. But they played some close games here recently of late. And with how Indiana has looked and with the way that the Buck game can always get wild and so unpredictable, 30 points seems like a lot of points for a rivalry game. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Matt, but that is a significant line. I was pretty shocked when I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it'd be in the 20s. I didn't think I was a little bit surprised it was basically almost 30. I could have been, I wouldn't have been maybe shocked at like 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there. But 20, you said 28, 28 and a half, and it's pushing 30 points. I mean, that's obviously that's five scores. You know what I mean? Or I guess it's four scores with 2 point conversions, but I mean, it's five scores. So, it's a big line, and it looks like it's going to be a chilly night. I don't know if there's going to any precipitations expected, but it's definitely going to be kind of cold, which could affect. Obviously when it's cold, it's a little bit harder to grip a football. Signetti said yesterday that Curtis Work's thumb, because somebody asked him about it being cold and the thumb like kind of getting stiff. He said the thumb's fine. That's was although I think Rourke is still kind of wearing a little bit of a bandage. Maybe that's to protect the nail area that was ripped off. Like I said, I think they win this game. I don't know if I would say cover right now, but I do think they win this game. I'm going to assume that they're going to be firing on all cylinders, and I think three to 3.5 touchdown win would not be shocking at all. And I mean, listen, I think if he can, I think Signetti's going to try to drop as many points as he can. That's my opinion. If they can score 60, he's going to try to score 60. I'm not saying they will, but I think that'll be his mindset going in. He is going to want to win this and win it big. For a couple of reasons. They kind of got embarrassed at Ohio State. This is a rivalry game. He's talked a lot of stuff about Purdue, and not just Purdue sucks at the basketball game. If you remember at the breakout session, he was talking about Purdue as a rivalry. He's like, why would we settle for being 6-6? That's a total jab at Purdue's program, saying they're basically a 500 program. So he's said more than a couple times he's taken some, and I have no problem with it. This is what we love about college sports and sports in general, this kind of stuff. So I think they're going to try to run up big time. We'll see if they're able to.
Yeah. The one thing that worries me a little bit here with that line, the Vegas line pushing 30 points too, is because Indiana is obviously being put on a pedestal in terms of the college football playoff. And when you have a line that big, a lot of people are going to be looking at this, pundits, selection committee, what have you, and say, well, Indiana only won by 21. Indiana only won by 24. They couldn't, cover that 30-point line. And are they going to hold that against Indiana come selection day? That would be my worry here, is that if Indiana, 21-point win in a rivalry game is still significant, but if they don't, I feel like if they don't hit that huge blowout win that they're predicted to do, that is my worry, is that the CFP committee might hold that against Indiana. And we've seen this year already, all the discussion going into the Ohio State game, how Indiana needs to be competitive, this, that, the other. I feel like a lot of people are going to look at the score of this game and say, they allowed Purdue to hang around, or Indiana really took care of business here. And that's the other part, is you need to win, but you also need to, for all intents and purposes, you need to crush them, to leave no doubt in the selection committee's eyes, because Indiana right now, they're on the bubble. I wouldn't say on the bubble, they're on the right side of the bubble, but this is a game where you have to take care of business. You have to do it big.
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from. I think if you win by 3 or 4 touchdowns, even if you don't cover, if it's a convincing win, I think you're probably okay. Like I told Ravi when we did our thing after the press conference yesterday, if it's like the Michigan game where you got to get defensive stop to win the game, or you're kicking a field goal, to win the game at the end, or you got to go down, you know what I mean, something like that, then I think that's going to be bad. I think you get dropped out. Assuming we're assuming tonight they're still going to be in the top 12 in the playoffs. So that's what we don't know, but let's just assume they're in it tonight when they release the college football playoff deal. I think if you beat them, and I would hope that the committee would understand that in rivalry games. I get Purdue's terrible. I mean, they're terrible in rivalry games. It's if a team's a 28-point favorite and they win by 23 or 24, that's still a good win. You know what I mean? Like yeah, you didn't cover, but it's still a good win. I mean, I'm going to guess Ohio State's going to be a significant favorite over Michigan. I have not seen the line,
They're like
but I would
20.
guess. I'm sorry, how much?
They're like 20.
That could be a 10-point game. Now, Michigan's not good offensively. They're not. But defensively, they could give, especially if their D line is the kind of D line that can give that kind of revamped offensive line some problems. That could be a game where it's like, maybe it's like 24-10 or something like that. Is that a convincing win? Is that impressive? I mean, and not that Ohio State's going to drop out, but that's what I'm saying. In these kind of games, records and all that kind of stuff get thrown out. To me, the one is if it's a one-score game throughout and you've got to hold on to win, I think you're in trouble. I think we could probably write off the playoff for Indiana if that happens.
Yeah. So Indiana, according to ESPN's Football Power Index, 97.6% chance to win. This will be the first night game in bucket game history, a 7 p.m. kick on FS1. So that should be interesting. It looks like the weather is supposed to be 28 degrees in cloudy, so you better bundle up if you're going to that game. I do wonder too, Matt, how the fan turnout will be. I'm not saying that the fans won't show up because the game's already sold out. But obviously the students make, a huge impact, and they'll be still on break or coming back from Thanksgiving break. So I'm curious to see what the student turnout is like, first of all. And then, I mean, the cold weather, it could deter some people from going to that game. And obviously it's schools like Wisconsin, Iowa that have had success. I mean, their fans have no problem sitting in that kind of weather. But I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. I feel like it'll be a good crowd once again. It's already sold out, obviously. We'll see how many of those people show up. I feel like it'll be a good crowd, but the night game does put a little bit of a wrench in sort of how Indiana is going to approach this one as well.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Indiana's picked up fans that haven't really been fans in the past however many years. Okay, I mean, they just have. They've gotten people to jump on the bandwagon. Did those people jump off because of the Ohio State game? Do they now say, oh, okay, well, and it's not the same old Indiana, but some people might be saying that because the same old Indiana doesn't go 10-1 and blow everybody out except for one team. So of their wins. But yeah, I wonder too. I mean, with it being really cold, with it being a holiday weekend, and with it being a night game, do people be like, yeah, I'd rather just stay home and watch it on my couch on my, flat screen, 50 something, 60 something inch TV. Part of me couldn't blame them, but also, like you said, Iowa plays in brutal conditions. Minnesota plays in brutal conditions. Wisconsin, Nebraska, this time of the year, it's super, super cold. The Michigan schools, Ohio State, I mean, all these schools up here are basically in the Big Ten play in tough conditions, and their fans show up. And here's the other thing. Purdue has had the worst season they've had in forever. This is their best attendance for a season in 20 years since Joe Tiller was there. Say what you want about Purdue, hate them all you want as an IU fan. You have got to have a ton of respect for that fan base because they show up. I'm telling you, Indiana fans, I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox, but you could heed some lessons from the Purdue fan base because they support their team through thick and thin. And when I saw that, I was blown away because I remember when Hazel was there, they had some crowds that were like 12, 15,000 people. I mean, they were awful crowds, and they've shown up for just a horrendous team. They're really, really bad. But they give them credit. I have a ton of respect for the Purdue fan base because while they can be obviously kind of childish with their IU sucks chant, they show up and they support their team big time. And it's kudos to them.
Yeah. I do want to talk about college football playoff to wrap us up here, but let's do predictions for this Purdue game, Matt. 28.5 is the line right now. The over-under is 56.5, so they're giving Indiana pretty much all the points there if they end up covering. I think this is a get-right game for Indiana. I really feel like Curt Cignetti's not going to allow a letdown game for Indiana. They're probably going to come out and punch Purdue in the mouth right away, and I really don't think Purdue's going to have a chance in this one, especially once Indiana gets rolling. I really would like to see Curtis Rourke have a nice game here. 300 yards passing, a couple touchdown passes. That would be good to see going into hopefully the college football playoff. So I think Indiana wins big. I think they get back into the 40-point column. I'll say Indiana. We'll give Nico Radich a field goal. So I'll say Indiana 48, Purdue. We'll go Purdue 13, 48-13 Indiana.
Okay, I'll go. My score is gonna be similar. I also say I'll give them a field goal. I'll say 45. I'll say 45. I'll just say Purdue gets it. I'll get it right at the line. I'll say Purdue gets a cheapie. No, I'll say 45-14. 45-14 for my prediction.
Okay. Do you want to hedge that with any craziness that happens in this game? Because the Buck game is always crazy.
No, I mean, like I said, I just, I think I expect Purdue to just do everything that you throw everything trick play they can at them. I really do. I wouldn't be shocked if Purdue wins the opening toss, defers, and onside kicks on the opening kickoff. I mean, stuff like that. I think something like that. Or if they get the ball first, let's just say they go down and they just get a field goal. I could see them when they go to kick off, they onside kick to try to get the ball right back again. Try to make that. I mean, something like that. So I think you're going to see all kinds of trick plays. If Indiana shows up and plays their game, I think they'll be fine. I think Purdue will come out fired up. This is it for them. They'll come out fired up. But then again, there's a ton of rumors that roster is about ready to basically, the guys who are able to move on are going to move on. They're already got one foot in the portal. So they're going to come out fired up. If you get going, get them down. I think they quit. I think it's over with. So we'll see. But that first quarter and a half is going to be interesting.
A quick tangent there. You keep mentioning the trick plays. This is something I thought we would see going into the Ohio State game was Indiana pull out more stuff from their bag. And I realize, when you're down that many points, you don't want to give away too many. But I mean, there's one game left in the regular season, maybe one CFP. I mean, time's running out to use these trick plays. I thought it was kind of odd that we didn't see Indiana try more of that. Now, obviously, the blocking issues were, part of that, but I felt like when Indiana trailed and you're looking for some kind of momentum to spark your offense in some way, I was a little surprised we didn't see any, end arounds or, maybe a double pass, something like that to really spark Indiana in that Ohio State game. I wonder if we see it against Purdue, but I feel like you don't want to bring it out now if you don't have to. So I mean, obviously it's in the past, but I really thought we would see something like that, something a little more creative from Indiana against Ohio State.
Yeah, my guess is that because of the trouble they were having up front, they didn't feel comfortable running some of those trick plays. And sometimes those are what you try to use when you are struggling to do stuff. But that'd be my guess. And then the speed that that Ohio State has on the perimeter, maybe they just felt like what this isn't the right time to do it. And also maybe it's because you're down. Once you got down a certain amount, run trick play is not going to get you back in the game. Now, maybe if you get it back within a touchdown, you run a trick play to try to score to tie it up. But why use it? Why show it, like you said, when it's not going to really impact the outcome of the game? That could have been it. I think a lot of it was they were just really struggling up front to protect Rourke and to protect, to do stuff. But I'm with you. Maybe you could have done something where you give it to Lawton and you have a receiver, Cooper, whoever coming the other way, you flip it to him, or you do an end around, something like that. But I just think it was a lot of it was they were struggling to block, and my guess is they just didn't feel comfortable running that stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's round this out talking about the college football playoff. The reveal is tonight at 7 p.m. If you're listening this on Wednesday, obviously you already know where Indiana is, but Indiana this week is number 10 in the AP poll. They were at number 5 last week in both the AP and the CFP, so you'd expect the AP poll has been pretty spot on with where the CFP also aligns. So around that 8, 9, 10 spot is where we probably expect Indiana to be tonight. Indiana got a ton of help this past weekend, Matt. I mean, let's be honest. They were very, very fortunate to come out of that Ohio State game still looking pretty good because a lot of people immediately after the Ohio State game pretty much wrote Indiana off as, outside looking in of the CFP. But, you have all these different teams losing. Alabama got crushed at Oklahoma. BYU lost. Arizona State's now making a run at the CFP. So there's a lot of different moving parts here. And Indiana is one of the main beneficiaries of what all ensued this past weekend. So I guess my question for you, Matt, is where would you feel most comfortable, with the seating tonight? Because obviously, after the Bucket game, you're going to be sitting around for a couple weeks waiting for that selection day. What seed line would you feel most comfortable at for Indiana to feel solid coming out of the Bucket game that Indiana should be in the CFP?
I would say probably 10 if I was going to maybe go the lowest. Because I mean, then for you to drop out, you need what? I mean, obviously there could one team, especially in the Big 12. the way the Big 12 is, because I think every Big 12 team is right now outside the top 12 as far as the ranking. I mean, the AP rankings. So you would assume that that's kind of where they're going to be, before before you kind of project who's going to win that conference and jump up in. But right now, like Boise State's probably going to be, you would think Boise State's going to be one of those teams that gets the conference champions that gets a bye, and the Big 12 team, because they're lower, will be that fifth seed. So I think if you're 10, even if a couple, even if there's maybe one other team in there that can maybe jump up, I think you would feel like you're still okay. Um, you get to 11, I would be a little bit nervous, and then 12, I'd be obviously if you're at 12, I mean, and the Big 12 teams behind you, you're out because once they move them up, the 12, whoever's 12 is going to get knocked down out of the or out of the top 12 to like 13th. So, I think they're going to be, my guess is in the top 10, like you said, and people said this, the AP poll or the college football projections have really kind of mirrored the polls. Maybe not exactly, but pretty close. I mean, when the first one, I think Indiana was 8. It was after they were 8th in the country. Last week, I want to say they were 5th or 6th when they were 5th in the country. They're 10th in the country this week. I would guess they'll be 10th, 9th or 10th in these things. And I think, like you said, Ole Miss losing, Alabama losing, and then they got some help. They absolutely got some help. So, I think right now they're in, but we'll wait and see tonight. I think it's at 8 o'clock when they do it. So it'll be interesting, and not that this will be the final one, but with only one more game to go, this could be fairly close to what will be. I've seen some projections of Indiana going to Notre Dame. I mean, how interesting would that be if they're playing? I think if they're like the 10th seed and Notre Dame's like, I think they'd be like to have to be the 7th seed or something. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Going to Penn State would be interesting. Going against Tom Allen if that happens. So we'll see. There's still another week of games, but I think if you're at least 10 or higher, I think you're probably okay.
Yeah. So obviously, it's rivalry week around the nation. So there's gonna be a lot of implications. Games to watch: Texas at Texas A&M. You really do not want A&M to win that game because then you're gonna give the committee a lot to think about. Even though Texas A&M already has 3 losses, you're gonna give them a lot to think about if they're able to beat Texas, which is third in the nation. Georgia Tech. You expect Georgia to win that game pretty handily, but Georgia Tech already has an upset win this year over Miami, so that's one to watch. Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has played very well at home this season. Tennessee has looked a little bit shaky at times. So that could be one where Vanderbilt is able to pull off that upset. Tennessee could be knocked out of the CFP. Miami travels to Syracuse. Syracuse has been pretty good of late as well. So there's a whole lot of different things here. Clemson playing at South Carolina. Matt, this is probably my biggest problem with the CFP is and I've said this before, I hate how the seeding is done this year. Like, I think it should be that your top 12 teams make it, and then you have the auto bids. But it messes so much stuff up when you're giving the top 4 ranked conference champions the top 4 seeds, because that essentially pushes every other team down 2 seed lines because of the teams that are ranked below you getting jumping you to the. I think it's so stupid how the ACC gets an auto bid, or sorry, automatic first round bye. How even at this point, I think Boise State would get the number 4 seed. So I mean, it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm sitting on a soapbox here with that stuff, but I think it really just messes up how you know these teams that are deserving of a top 4 seed aren't going to get it, and teams like Indiana could essentially be pushed out of the CFP because you're giving these other teams automatic bids and stuff that maybe not be as deserving.
Yeah, I agree. I have no problem with putting. I don't really have a big problem, although I could see where this year could be a problem if the Big 12 team's 13th or 14th, and they get into the top 12 and it knocks a team or two out. But I don't have a problem with you putting the conference champions in. I do have a problem with you seeding them you seeding the top 4 highest seeds 1 through 4. So when I say that, it doesn't mean those seeds they're all seeded, they're all ranked 1 through 4. They could be ranked 1, 5, you know what I mean? But the top 4 highest seeded are ranked conference champions are going to be the top 4 seeds. I don't like that. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair at all. I mean, listen, even if I mean, let's say Ohio State beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Oregon's, in my opinion, still one of the 4 best teams in the country. They should be one of the top 4 seeds, and you could say that about the SEC as well in a lot of years. And maybe this year. So I don't, I don't like how they do that. I think I just don't think it's right. I think, Boise State should not get the 4 seed. They're going to probably be, I don't know, 7 or 8, 9, whatever it may be, and they're going to get to host a game, and that, or they're going to get a bye. I'm sorry, into the quarterfinals, playing in the Mountain, whatever conference they're in now. I can't remember what Mountain West, or yeah. I'm sorry. I don't mean, listen, people say they want about Indiana's schedule. You put Indiana in the Mountain West, and I'm gonna tell you right now, they're going undefeated. I mean, they're gonna go undefeated. So I don't, if you're gonna complain about Indiana's schedule, then there should be some pissing and moaning about Boise State possibly being a top 4 seed, because I don't think they've earned that. So, but it is what it is. Like I said, the biggest deal is, I said it yesterday, get an invitation to the party and go dancing and see what you can do.
Mm-hmm. The other discussion here with the CFP is a lot of people still are talking about, should a 3-loss SEC team be in over Indiana? My answer pretty definitively is no. Like, I don't understand when did we start devaluing the number of win? Like, did people realize how difficult it is to win 10 in a row in the Big Ten? I mean, like, when did we start devaluing that? And I understand people want to say the SEC is a much better conference. Like, the worst team in the SEC would be a middle of the pack to top half of the Big Ten. Like, when did we start devaluing quantity of wins over quality of losses? Like, I don't understand how, sure, you play good teams in the SEC, but you got to win your games. I mean, you got to win your games. And you're putting, if you put a 3-loss SEC team over Indiana, and that's what keeps Indiana out of the playoff. I mean, that is, to me, this is the first year of the 12-team playoff. If you find a way to keep Indiana out of this 12-team playoff in the first year, you're essentially saying that this process is already flawed. And you'd hope that the selection committee has more foresight than to completely destroy the process in year one. But then again, I mean, at this point with Indiana, probably going to be towards the bottom half of the 12-team bracket. I wouldn't be shocked if they do something crazy like that, because, I mean, for some reason the SEC gets so much more of a pass than any other conference. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, I agree. And when we were sitting there waiting for Signetti, I don't know if you heard or not. Can't remember who it was. Said, yeah, people are making the case. It's harder to lose 3 SEC games on an SEC schedule than to win, 11. Within. I mean, I don't know. It's not just the wins. It's not like Indiana's been eking out wins and they've had to hold on to beat teams. They're smoking teams. And once again, I'll say the non-conference schedule is on Indiana. They made it. It's not their fault that Michigan's down. It's not their fault that Maryland's not as good as people thought they were going to be. And I'm not saying Maryland's supposed to be great, but Maryland's four. What are they, 5-6? Whatever their record is, 4-7. A lot of people thought they'd be 7-4. It's not their fault that Michigan State, has not been. People thought they'd be a little bit better. I mean, you can't put that all on Indiana. They can't control the Big Ten schedule. They went out there and they absolutely hammered everybody they played except for Michigan. So, and real quick, getting back, you said you don't want to win. I just read real quick. If Texas A&M wins, they're in the SEC championship. That's really bad for Indiana, because I think even if Texas loses at Texas A&M, a 2-win Texas team is going to get in. And if Texas A&M gets into the SEC championship and they would end up winning that, then they would get in and get a top 4 seed. They got 3 losses, if I'm not mistaken. I think they have 3 losses. Yeah. So yeah, IU fans and probably some other fans in the CFP really need to be pulling for Texas to win, because that kind of keeps the status quo. Texas A&M could be the real big monkey wrench, and that game's in down at A&M. So that's going to be a tough game. I think Texas is a better team, but you know what? They struggled a little bit against Kentucky this past week, but I'm just throwing that out there real quick. This is a big game for a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot, but at least definitely a few teams, and most definitely Indiana, that Texas A&M, because if they go to the SEC championship and they win that, wow, that's going to really, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people saying Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and A&M should all get in. 4 teams plus 3 or 4 plus 4 other. There's not that many spots left. There's just not that many spots, because there's going to be 5 conference champions. So you got 4 more conference champions. That's not 8 teams. Indiana's screwed if that happens. Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot's got to happen for that to happen, but they are in big trouble if that happens.
Yeah. So I guess if we want to whittle this down to a sort of Spark Notes version of who does, if you're an Indiana fan, who do you want to win this week? You want Texas to win. You probably want Vanderbilt to beat Tennessee to knock Tennessee out of the 12 team. Um, Syracuse, I believe if they were to beat Miami, that would probably put Miami behind the eight ball. But I still think they'd probably be going to the ACC championship game, so they could get in that way. Clemson versus South Carolina is very interesting because you have a three-loss South Carolina playing a two-loss Clemson. Clemson is 12th in the AP poll this week. So you probably want Clemson to win that game to keep South Carolina on the outside looking in. And then Ole Miss should handle Mississippi State. So a lot of interesting games here. But the big one obviously is Texas. You want Texas to win, and then Vanderbilt as well if they can pull that off over Tennessee. So it should be very interesting. The CFP reveal again is tonight at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Matt, one last thing on the CFP reveal. I hope we do not hear another hour-long soapbox from Joey Galloway because that is just brutal. I mean, we're three straight weeks of that stuff, and I mean, I wrote about this in my column. I mean, it's literally an hour-long show of him just hammering Indiana for no reason. I don't really get it, and I really hope we don't see that tonight.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's kind of the point where you almost feel like, did they draw straws like 3 weeks ago to say, okay, I'm going to be the one who's gonna basically take Indiana out of the woodshed and and basically denounce them. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's a Ohio State guy. You know what I mean? My guess is tonight you're going to probably hear a little bit of "I told you so" from Galloway, especially to Booger McFarland, who's really been one of Indiana's biggest, if not their biggest supporter on that panel of people. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll be perfectly honest. I watched the reveal and then I turn it off. Like I'm not interested in the commentary. I'm really not. I've been following Indiana for a long time. And obviously, they've never been into this position, but I know what the national perception is of the football program, and it's not completely inaccurate. They've been terrible, but I don't need to hear it over and over again. I watch the reveal and then I'm done. That's all I need to know. I want to see where the teams are seated, and then I'm good after that. I'm not really interested in all their opinions.
Yeah, we'd probably all be better off that way if we took that same approach. Quick thing here, Matt. I just saw Pete Thamel just tweeted that UNC has fired Mac Brown as their
Yeah.
coach. I wonder. I mean, now obviously it's whole speculation, and this is going down a whole, different rabbit hole. I wonder if they look Indiana's way at maybe Brian Haynes or Mike Shanahan. I don't know their connections to that area at all. But they're from the East Coast. Obviously, those guys are. That could be one to watch because the UNC job is pretty appealing, and obviously, if you're a coordinator and you get offered a P5 job or P4 job, so the carousel is about to start firing here as we wind down in the regular season. So that is one to watch. I don't know. Were there any other schools, Matt, so far that have any other openings? At least P4. I don't think so.
Um, Not that I could think of. I may be missing somebody. I think most of the job, the everybody knows Kevin Wilson just got fired. What I think he's in what conference or American, whatever conference he's in, like half the jobs are open in that conference. It's
Yeah, the American.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like five or six. I mean, East Carolina is open. I can't remember. There's a bunch of jobs open in that conference. It's really kind of weird. Um, with North Carolina and Indiana guys, I'd be a little surprised if first of all, I expect North Carolina to try to get a sitting head coach. That'd be my guess. Whether it's a P4 guy or a G5 guy, I would expect them to go after a sitting head coach. That would be surprising to me, but not totally shocking because of the success they've had, and they've been in that area, being at JMU and Elon, because Elon's there in that area, and obviously JMU is in Virginia, so they know the area. But I'd be a little bit surprised. I think they'll go big. I mean, listen, they're trying to get out of the ACC. They're trying to get into the SEC or the Big Ten. They're one of those schools that wants out. Them in Florida State. I think they're going to try to go big game hunting. I think they're going to try to go get a name coach, and they've got a lot to offer. I mean, North Carolina is a great school. You can win there. You can win big there. So they got a lot to offer. I think they'll go after a big name coach. Who that'll be, I'm not sure. It'll be interesting. Will they get that bit? We'll find out. But yeah, I think if they get down to like a Brian Haynes or Mike Shanahan, they probably missed out on some guys. But at the same time, I think those guys at some point will be at a place like that, and they'll probably do a great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a tangent there because I talked to Bud Elliott of the Cover 3 podcast last week, and I posted that over on the site, our conversation. But he mentioned that he doesn't think there's going to be a whole lot of P4 openings this year, at least major ones, because of the house settlement that's coming down and revenue sharing. He thinks a lot of schools are going to want to save their money, and not spend it on things like buyouts. And that might be part of the reason why Ryan Walters is being rumored to get get next season, to come back next season, is a lot of these schools are, they want to make sure they have a nice cachet of money for when this revenue sharing starts, because that's not going to be you know uh, you're gonna have to pay significant money out of pocket for that. So that is part of it. But obviously we'll see the coaching carousel as we move on, which is going to start heating up here in the next week or so. Matt, any final thoughts as we go into bucket week? CFP revealed tonight. Anything coming out of the Ohio State game? Any last thoughts?
No, my last thoughts are the next couple of weeks are going to be really are going to be hectic and chaotic. You got the bucket game Saturday. Obviously, you got another. We'll have another CFP thing next Tuesday, I believe. Wednesday, they move signing day up this year. The early signing period in December is usually, like, this year would have been probably like the 18th to the 20th. Now it's the 4th through the 6th, and then the portal opens on the 9th. So things are going to really pick up, and then obviously Indiana will find out also where they're going here in the next couple of weeks. So this is going to be a really kind of crazy ride from between now and basically Christmas.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy ride for IU fans.
You mentioned signing day. One last thought on that, because I know you had put out the it's inside the locker room, early enrollees, excuse me. That seems like a lot of spring
Yeah.
enrollees for Indiana. Do you have any insight into why they're taking so many? I mean, obviously you'd love to have kids on campus early because you can develop them early, but any insight on why that number is so large? Because it does feel abnormally big.
I think guys just want to get into school. I think they just want to get started sooner. It's, there might have been years you could have done that in the past. The problem is the rules kind of eliminated, because back when you could only sign 25, you could actually go, it's all, I don't want to get real down the road, but you could like count backwards. So like if you sign 21 year, the next year you could sign 25, or you could sign 30 and have 5 of those guys, and you could count them back to the previous season because they enrolled early. That's all out the window. There's no more rules. There's no more limitations. There's none of that stuff anymore, really. I just think guys are graduating early and getting started sooner. And maybe some of it is because they can get NIL money quicker. It honestly may be a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, 15 out of 22, what is that? That's like what, 70%, 60 something percent of the class, like 2/3. It's really, and the thing is, like I said, you got some guys at position groups, Byron Baldwin and Deontay Stewart, who both could be safeties. Baldwin is one, and Stewart could be one. Kyler Garcia on the D line. I'm forgetting somebody else on the D line. I apologize. Keyshawn Calhoun. He's a guy that probably start out as an edge and then be like Landino and move inside. I mean, you've got guys, and then receiver. I think LeBron Bond has got a great chance to play right away. He's one of my favorite players in the class. And I think he's got a great chance. Everybody knows I gave a lot of love to Baylor Wilkin. His O-line tape was ridiculous. He was killing guys for basically 8 minutes. I know it's a highlight tape, but that still was insane. He had over 80 pancakes this year in high school football. That's incredible. That's ridiculously good. I mean, I think he played 11 games. That's like 7 pancakes a game. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't care who you're playing. That's insane. But yeah, it is. That's a lot of. It's good. I mean, and you think about, they're going to have those 15, and you figure probably at least 15 to. I mean, I don't know, and I'm not sure how with the portal guys. Let's just say they take 20 and they all come in. You could have 35 new players in spring ball. I mean, and this is kind of the way it is going forward. So we're going to have a lot of new players to learn come whenever spring starts in March, because I think there's going to be a ton of new guys.
Yeah. Last thing too, with signing day coming up here very shortly, Matt. Are you keeping your eye on any potential flips last minute for Indiana, or do you feel like the class is pretty much solidified for at least for the early signing period?
I think there's a chance. And I mean, once again, I mean, I don't want to try to hold out on people, but at this time, I'm not really at liberty to give out a bunch of names. People have mentioned the quarterback from California. I think it's Robert McDaniel was committed to Arizona. There's been some whispers about him. I mean, that's already out there, so I can mention him. But there could be a couple others. There could be an official visit this weekend, but it's not set in stone. So once I know it, I'll definitely report it. And once I get the okay, but there could be a couple. We'll wait and see. I think this season has opened the eyes of some guys that while they were a little bit interested in Indiana, they never seriously considered them. And now I think there's some guys out there who are like, and that's why the 26 class, not to get up, but the 26 class can be interesting because they've had this great season. And if they go in the playoff and they have a good showing, um, I think you really could see some big fish being very interested in Indiana. Guys that in the past maybe might take a visit, but then that's it. They're kind of done with IU, where it could get really serious. We'll see. I might be wrong on that, but I do think that their pool of players has really greatly increased because of the success they've had.
Yeah, no, it's really good to see, and especially coming out of the Ohio State game, you saw the talent disparity there. You need talent, and hopefully Indiana can become at least become a little bit more competitive in that area against if they want to continue competing with the big fish in the Big Ten. So that'll do it on this week's podcast. Indiana is 10-1 after they fall to Ohio State. Regular season finale this Saturday, 7 p.m. on FS1 against Purdue. The Hoosiers are looking to win back the old Oaken bucket. Expecting a big win, hopefully, in terms of scoring margin, that is. Kind of keep away the CFP dollars. The CFP reveal is tonight, the fourth rankings reveal. So we'll see where Indiana shakes out in that regard. And then, we'll see what Saturday has to hold. Matt and I will be there. Rabbi and Trevor are over in the Bahamas. Lucky them. They'll probably be on a beach somewhere while we're sitting in the 30 degrees. But that will do it for this week. Matt, thanks for joining me as always, and thank you folks for listening. We'll do another podcast next week to wrap up the whole season as a whole, and then we're in wait and see mode until the college football playoff selection day. So that'll do it for this week's podcast. We'll see you folks over on Peegs.com.